Welcome, everyone, to episode 53 of the Thundercraps podcast, where we forge through the shitstorm that was WCW Thunder. I am your host, half Bob Mackey, half Ace Hardware, Josh Kaiser. And joining me today, a man who is so freaky, even Marilyn Manson will say, "Woo, man, is that freaky?" Kyle Hoagland.
Quote of the century by our boy Perry Saturn. What's going on, everybody?
What is going on? How are you doing?
I want to know who wrote that, or if that was like I just wanted to be a fly on the wall of him going into the back, and everyone's like, "Dude, where did you come up with that?" He's like, "Oh, dude, I just came up with that right off the rip, man." And they're like, "Yeah, it feels like you did."
That is a gold mine. But what is not a gold mine is Thunder 53, March 4th, 1999. We are live, but I guess before we're live, we've got a lot of things that happen. We open the show with a replay from Nitro. It's David Flair. It's Torrie Wilson. Arn Anderson's in there talking to David Flair. David tells Arn Anderson that he's lost, get out of his locker room. Arn's basically asking if he's throwing away his entire family for some, slut. Torrie says, "Arn, you wish you could have me," and Arn basically says he doesn't want any part of her. Ultimately David's going to say the Four Horsemen and WCW are old, and, the NWO is cool, and they're cool and hip. And, Torrie tells David afterwards, like, you should have hit Arn. I felt like David, Flair, and Torrie here were a little awkward in this segment. You can tell that I feel like they're not comfortable yet in this in these roles.
Well, it doesn't sound like two wrestling talents cutting shooting anything right now. It's Arn who's doing a wrestling shoot, and two people that are just like, "Know your mom." Like, that's how I kind of saw it. Like, it felt like one wrestler yelling at two bystanders, and the bystanders are just getting dressed down, and they're just like, "Dude, you're old. Get out of here." Like, it didn't feel like three entertainers, doing like a bit.
Right.
But what Torrie was wearing, I was 100% for.
You excused it all. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I can appreciate that. So after this, we then move to Thunder, and you and I both said the same thing. The only way we know it's Thunder here is we have Arn and Ric Flair sitting in a locker room chatting, but Arn is wearing a Thunder button down, so that must mean he's not on Nitro. But this is a fact from Thunder, right?
It's to show that time has passed.
This is Ric Flair basically saying that people wondered why he didn't go on TNT on Nitro on Monday nights to discuss why why he didn't cry about David Flair. He says we then find out that he basically said, "Hey, I got power of WCW for 20 more days, so I'm giving myself another world title match, this time at Uncensored in a steel cage with Hogan." He also says that his agenda means a lot to him. Basically said David Flair's made his choice. He's going to have to grow up on his own. I've got better things to focus on. And, Rick continues to go on talking about it's all about the world title now, trying to become a 14-time champion. Arn Anderson basically says, hey, you should be taking care of your son. The NWO has brainwashed him. This woman has brainwashed him. They talk about the parody, about how the NWO ripped on him. Ultimately, Arn seems a little stunned that Ric Flair has chosen his legacy over, his family at this point. So it looks like both David Flair and Ric Flair have chosen other things over family. Rick, of course, choosing the belt, David choosing the girl, and Arn just he's beside himself and needs some time to think.
Which is it's very interesting because when you actually, here we are in 2019. I know that the Ric Flair 30 for 30 is, about over a year old, almost 2 years old now at this point. And it's kind of he's kind of telling a true story.
It is pretty accurate. But the only thing I thought was weird about that is I feel like Rick is the face in this, and that doesn't seem like it would be the way the face would handle this situation, But I guess they're just ultimately saying, maybe this is the shades of gray, with Rick, and it kind of leaves you up to, well, who do you agree with Rick? Like, you know what, he's a grown man, he's gonna make his mistakes now, and I just got to focus on me, or do you take Arn's side of like, he is family? So I guess it kind of puts a moral, the moral dilemma out on the viewer.
Yeah, and it's true. And there's going to be more discussion of that later in another promo, which I gave high praise for. We'll get to that when we go to it. But yeah, there is definitely a kind of like a little bit of a tug in both directions as far as where you kind of stand on what side of the fence. But yeah, I liked it. It felt like real. It felt like Arn and Ric Flair having like a real conversation. Because yeah, for the most part, Ric Flair is just saying, look, he's a grown man. He made a decision. I'm not going to wallow in it. All they're trying to do is distract me, and I have to. I already put myself in this match. Whatever they're going to try and do, it's all going to be probably just to try to get him off his rhythm for his world title match. So he's just got to ignore it for now and concentrate the task at hand. So I think it still felt more like a face interview. But yeah, I mean, in the end, it's like, what are you going to do? And he betrayed you. Like, why do you got to try and back up your own son at this point?
Absolutely. After this, though, we are live from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Tony Schiavone lets us know that we are 10 days from Uncensored. Man, that seems quick, doesn't it? I feel like we just saw Super Brawl. So it must have been a quick turnaround. We find out, of course, Hogan and Flair in a cage match for the world title. Of course, Tenay, Heenan, and Schiavone here doing on commentary. Heenan, though, I feel like he barely showed up. He's rocking a blue T-shirt and an orange like button-up that's unbuttoned. He looks a little disheveled, like he lost his luggage and he just kind of wore whatever he could find. And they're discussing, of course, the world title and Flair and Hogan. And this is when we move to our second replay of the night. It's Ric Flair on Nitro. He's talking to Mean Gene in the ring. He's talking about David Flair and how he doesn't get why, they joined the NWO. He then talks about how, Hall and Nash and Luger and Buff are all cool. He totally ignores Scott Steiner, so sucks for you, Scott. He then tells Hogan he has built a cage with no doors and barbed wire on the top of it, so nobody can get in, nobody can get out. It's just going to be the two of them.
They might as well just call it a Hell in a Cell at this point.
Hey, there's no cover. And then after that, we go to our third replay of the night. Yes, 3 replays already. And it's Buff and Scott Steiner. They're on Nitro talking about how Rick Steiner had interfered the week before when they try to take out Goldberg. Then we find out that there's a tag team match. Goldberg's going to spear Buff Bagwell. Commentary team is they're unhinged at this spear. I gotta admit, it's a commentary team that we never hear on Thunder. They do let us know that Buff's stuff is all over the mat, which I love
that. they lost their minds over that spear than Chris Benoit jumping off top of a cage.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Buff is then going to catch a front bulldog from Rick Steiner, which I thought was a little strange.
I'm glad you caught that. That it was clearly a clothesline, but the way that Rick Steiner set it up, it looked like he was trying to do a bulldog. But obviously, the guy's facing you, but he still just does the full motion anyways. Like I don't know anything else. This is my move.
That's how Nitro closed out. Was Rick Steiner pinning Buff Bagwell. That closed out Nitro. And now,
before we even get on that, did you notice too that Buff and Goldberg were the legal men, and then Rick Steiner just comes in and clotheslines and pins for the win? I'm just saying, like, I got called. It's Mickey J. All right, Mickey J has been on thin ice for like a month, and even in this match, he's gone from like taking shitty bumps to not recognizing tags, but literally. Goldberg's the legal man, hits the spear, goes for the jackhammer. Scott Steiner blocks that. And then Rick Steiner just does his bulldog liner clothesline from the top rope on the Buff and just pins him. And that's your match. Just thought I had to be a stickler about that and call that shit out, Mickey J.
Yeah, there you go. Now, 19 minutes into Thunder, and we finally get our opening match. We find out that Hugh Morris, rocking a 2-match winning streak, is challenging Rick Steiner here. You and I both commented Jimmy Hart, of course, in this match is going to get punched at some point, knocked off the apron. I said take a drink because I swear every time Jimmy Hart's coming out here, he is being knocked off the apron. Rick Steiner.
Yeah, I said my notes were like, even as soon as I found out that Rick Steiner was the opponent, I'm like, oh, Jimmy Hart's getting decked sometime in this match.
Absolutely. Rick Steiner is, of course, going to win this match. I gave it a star and 3/4. It was fine, I guess, for what it was here with Rick Steiner and Hugh Morris. But I gotta admit, the top rope bulldog as a finisher is so cheesy because the guy has to like get up and like stumble around like he's dazed in a video game, and it's so terrible.
I mean, we see that a lot with other moves in the annals of wrestling history where I look at moves like the People's Elbow where, you know, he just does like a scoop slam or like a little bit of a spine buster, and then you're supposed to expect that a wrestler is just going to be prone for 20 seconds on the ground and watch the acrobatics as he hits that. But yeah, I loved it when he got to the middle rope and Hugh Morris is on the like literally other side of the ring. He's not even near. It's one thing if he rolled around a little bit and then just kind of got up to get in position. But no, he gets up on the opposite side of the ring and then staggers backwards into it, which we've seen before a couple times. Basically every Rick Steiner match, that this is what we're going to expect. I also gave it a star and 3/4. It wasn't a very eventful match. I feel like we've seen this match. I mean, literally, I think we saw Rick Steiner versus Hugh Morris before he got injured, and it was almost exactly the exact same match. With the staggering walking backwards into the bulldog. So it was just one of those things where, you know, it wasn't a great match then. It wasn't an awesome match now. So, you know, it can't get up into that meh 2-star.
I agree. After the match, we go back to the ring. Mean Gene, they're amping us up for Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko. Those two come out. They're going to cut a promo here. Chris Benoit says, it was he pronounces the word fortuitous as he really enunciates the words there. He talks about how Payback will be vengeance horseman style in reference to Wyndham and Hennig. Mean Gene's going to, of course, talk about how Benoit and Malenko were great singles wrestlers. Dean then is going to cut a heavy promo about everything Benoit sacrificed to lose, you know, all for them to lose the belt, and which I actually thought was a pretty good promo here from Dean. I thought this might have been one of Dean's most passionate promo. Dean is then going to begin to undress, and Gene's going to basically say, whoa, 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 easy, buddy. And then we find out that Benoit and Malenko are in a tag team match for the titles at Uncensored. And, you know, with Uncensored, anything can happen. And the stipulations for this match, it's a lumberjack match, but all the lumberjacks are going to have belts with them.
And Ric Flair is going to wear a dress.
And they say the following night we're not going to have not one, not two, but 3 horsemen will be rocking the gold as Malenko and Benoit will have the tag titles, Ric Flair will have the world title, and Steve Mongo McMichael will just be there.
He'll be the Vincent of the group.
After this, we get our next match. We actually get our Saturday night promo. We find out that Saturn is going to be on Juventud versus Rey Mysterio, Hugh Morris, and then the great return match since the betrayal, Ming versus Barbarian Kyle. So this is where we're at. It's on Saturday night where they're going to get to finish what they started on Thunder.
That sounds about right to me.
After this, we do get our next match now. It's Al Green wrestling the Cat and Sonny Ono.
That is former #1 contender for the world title, Al Green.
Well, that would make sense because he's in a handicap match against the Cat and Sonny Ono. How about this music for the Cat? Can we talk about this for a minute?
I swear to God, first of all, it is very similar to his entrance music. It's almost like take that music, make it a little lighter. Like by light, I mean like instead of like bum burner, it was like bum burner. That's like really what it is. It's more James Brown. And it's him usually like little sound bites of like, I'm the greatest, someone call my mama. But none of that was there, and the music was a little bit drearier, more drawn out. I feel like this is a WWE Network thing.
I called it like James Brown at the circus. Like it just...
It sounded like if you were playing a Super Nintendo game and you just entered the circus level. Like it sounded like a MIDI. It sounded like a MIDI file on a GeoCities website. And It was, but like once again, I went on YouTube to look it up. It is his music, but just slightly drowned out, and I think that's the WWE Network's like hand in this, because I want to know who's the guy that was in charge of going through every WCW Thunder and flagging everything that is a potential copyright infringement just so they can fuck with the music. I will say this. You guys got very particular with this particular one. So hats off, but at the same time, dude, go outside like that. This is you tried way too hard on this one.
As for the match, before it even starts, of course, Cat's going to get on the microphone. He's going to pump Sonny Ono up, saying Sonny can, kick Al Green's ass. Eventually, Sonny's ready to run through a brick wall for the Cat, and the Cat's going to instead enter the ring to fight the match. This is when he's going to give Al Green 5 seconds to get out of the ring. Of course, Al Green does not. The Cat is going to knock Al Green out with a foot to the chest, and this is when Sonny Ono is going to get tagged in. He's going to stand on Al Green for the 3 count. I give it a star and 3/4. I know what they're trying to do here. I got to admit, to me, the Cat has gotten 1,000% less interesting since Sonny Ono became his manager. Though I feel like you kind of disagree with that, Kyle.
No, I agree with that sentiment, but I gave it the same rating. I gave it a star and 3/4. I thought it was entertaining from the Sonny Ono position of things. I think he actually made this match at least a little bit more of a comic relief than it was. I do love that a kick to the chest knocks out people. It wasn't like it was like an uppercut, like a sweet chin music or something like that. It was just like a regular kick to the chest. And for the most part, Al Green had him on the ropes decently, and then the Cat just kicks him once in the chest. And that roundhouse kick that Sonny Ono did to finish him off, he was closer to kicking me in 2019 from the future than he had it actually hitting Al Green, who was prone and held by the Cat and still totally missed the kick, and then does a Jericho-like pin at the end. I just thought it was hilarious. I think it's a star and a half match with an extra quarter for the just above and beyond antics of Sonny Ono.
Fair enough, but I will say that kick to the chest was from a 3-time karate champion. So
sure, maybe it was like a heart kick.
Right, exactly. After the match, Mean Gene, who's got some audio issues at the beginning, he comes back into the ring. He's interviewing Saturn. Saturn's going to come out rocking a skirt. He's got dog collar around his neck and all kinds of chains. He calls himself the original bald bombshell. Gene basically lets us know he's not into dudes. He's then going to say he needs to talk to focus group before he buys into the idea that chicks dig dudes in dresses. We find out Jericho has a chain fetish and Saturn has a bondage fetish. This is when we find out that we have a dog collar match, because anything can happen at Uncensored, Kyle, between Jericho and Saturn. Jericho's going to come out and say he has a fetish for G-rated WCW content. And then that's
which is a weird thing to fucking say.
Really weird thing. And Saturn one-ups him with the weird things to say by making the comment about Marilyn Manson. That is your segment. How pumped are you for Saturn and Jericho in a dog collar match?
Hey, man, it's uncensored. Anything can happen. Ric Flair could also be wearing a dress.
Our next match of the night, the return of Prince Iaukea. He'll be wrestling Bam Bam Bigelow in a squash match. I gotta say, the commentary team, as this match is going on, all they can talk about is Jericho and Saturn, and what Marilyn Manson might think about it and Saturn's outfit. This match is going on for a few minutes at this point. They spent a lot of time talking about Jericho and Saturn. They then move on to discuss Raven and Hack, because Bam Bam Bigelow is now in a triangle match at Uncensored, because anything can happen at Uncensored.
Ric Flair could also be wearing a dress.
Thank you. And I'm realizing we're like 5 minutes into this match, and it's going to be a squash. Prince Iaukea is going to lose this thing. Holy shit. This might be it, Kyle. We may have finally broken the streak, but we got about 2 minutes left in the match. Tony realizes he's got to focus on the match, mentions former television champion Prince Iaukea. I was going to lose my fucking mind if they didn't say it, but he said it.
We were waiting for the bass to drop, and it finally did.
And Greetings from Asbury Park followed soon after. I gave it 2 stars. It was a match nobody cared about, but it was fine, and welcome back, Prince Iaukea.
Same thing. 2 stars, standard squash. Prince had some offense, ultimately a pretty easy payday for both. I will say this, though, that Grings from Asbury Park, he got spiked.
Yes, he did. It looked great. So I gotta say, Raven, Hack, and Bam Bam in a triangle match, if they let him give him some time, that could be a good match.
Yeah, if they let them explore the space, and say, hey, just do whatever the fuck you want to do. It's pay-per-view. It's not TNT. Go have fun with it. I think it actually could be a very entertaining match.
After this, we get Horace Hogan and Vince in tag team competition against the tag team champions, Barry Windham and Kurt Hennig. We find out, though, that the tag titles are not on the line, as Tenay lets us know that. Early into this match, the crowd's going to go nuts. That's because Stevie Ray's coming out here. He's going to fight Vince. Vince and him battle on the outside. Vince is eventually going to run out. This is going to leave a 2-on-1 on Horace Hogan, but ultimately Malenko and Benoit are going to come out. The match is thrown out. You gave it a dud. I didn't give it a rating. I thought this entire thing was pointless, and at that point, why did they even mention it was non-title if they were just going to absolutely have it throw it out like this?
Right, yeah. I mean, I didn't think too much about it, but I did kind of be like, why even bring it up like it mattered? I guess the whole thing is, I'm glad they did say it, because we've kind of joked about how like a good example would be like the cruiserweight title or the television title where there's been a feud going on between like Jericho and Prince Iaukea. They're going to be wrestling at the next pay-per-view. They've been doing promos against each other. The whole too fat to be a cruiserweight, and it's all going to come together at this particular pay-per-view. But first, Jericho's got to defend the TV title against somebody. Right. And if Jericho loses, then that means Prince Iaukea fights this guy. I'm like, the fuck he is. So the moment they says no, I'm like, all right, at least they're not going to like tease this, like this whole Barry Windham, Kurt Hennig taking on the Horsemen. Obviously, that's what's been going on. They're shooting promos. Meiji literally talked to the two guys in that match, and so the kiss of death of like, yeah, of course, Horace Hogan and Vince are not going to win this, but don't also throw in there the classic, well, if Horace and Vince win, then it'll be them taking on the Four Horsemen. Who the fuck would care about that match?
Yeah, pretty much. But what we will care about, Kyle, is the return of Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Out he comes as only he can come. He's going to walk into the ring. He of course, opens up with a prayer, and the camera's going to pan around the crowd. But instead of saying amen at the end, we get an oh. There was a bunch of people booing, and I was like, that's kind of awkward. So the guys wanted to do a quick prayer, and there was like 30 people just booing as loud as they could. I was like, damn, these guys don't like people being cancer, apparently. Of course, we're going to get USA chants. Duggan's going to thank the fans for all their letters and emails. He thanks WCW for supporting him and his family throughout it all. Says he could not be prouder to be part of WCW. He then thanks the doctor for his part in all of this. He then lets us know that, don't ever give up, and early detection save lives. He tells everybody to go to the doctor and get inspected for things. He then pledges if he gets back into the ring, he will not change. He's not going to have feather boas, no sequence boas, no piercings, no tattoos, and no obscene gestures, and no obscene words from this guy. And he promises he'll have more impact in the next few years than he will have had in his last 20. You can tell there's passion here, Kyle. We get USA chance to close it out. What did you think about Duggan's whole spiel here?
It was good to see it. I'm glad to see him back. He's, we always talk about how people are Jim Duggan over, and no one's as Jim Duggan over as Jim Duggan. But I will have to fact check the whole he's going to have more impact in the next few years than the last. Because if that's true, and if they actually really had like a thing for him, it's a terrible decision to make. The dude's like 40 years old. There's really no reason to have him be a mainstay when there's so many people at the top right now. There's no room for him. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be doing his normal thing.
I mean, AJ Styles is in his 40s right now. Why can't Duggan,
Because Duggan looked like he was in his 40s 20 years ago.
Okay, well, I guess that's fair. I'm just trying to look. I was trying to take a quick look here at his return. to
What do you think? How many titles do you think he wins between 99 and 2001?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I'm pretty sure he does win a title or two after he comes back, when he becomes part of like that Canada team or whatever, when he's got the
Canadian flag, yeah.
Because I think he wins. I thought he won like the U.S. title and became the Canadian title or something like that. Maybe that was Lance Storm. But I don't know. Either way, welcome back, Jim Duggan. Glad to hear you're doing all right. The next match of the night, Chavo Guerrero Jr. wrestling Kidman. May only be the 100th time these two have wrestled
in a row.
We do find out we find out from Tenay that Kidman is now the second longest running cruiserweight champion. They don't mention who the longest reigning cruiserweight champion is, though.
You want to know why?
Time. Is it somebody who's not in the? Is it 6?
It's Xbox. Yeah. It's 6.
That makes sense. Of course, you can absolutely tell that Kidman and Chavo have a ton of chemistry here. It's fast action, back and forth. It looks fluid. Nobody's messing up. At one point, Kidman flies out of the ring, and Tony says, or Heenan says, he's he must have headed to Charlotte or something like that. But then Tony gets incredibly deep, smart assy, and says actually that's closer to another city in North Carolina, because he headed west instead of east, or north instead of south, whatever it was. Kidman and Chavo go back and forth. Ultimately, Chavo's going to curl up Kidman with his feet on the ropes. Silverman's going to count 3, but as he hits 3, he notices that Chavo's feet were on the ropes, so he says, no, that's not how this match is going to end. Chavo's going to argue. Kidman's going to roll him up. I thought for sure that's how they were going to end the match. But no, Chavo kicks out. We do get a powerbomb off the top rope. Shooting star press for the 3. Kidman's your winner. He retains. I gave the match 3 stars, though. I thought it was back and forth. I thought the ending wasn't predictable, the way they kind of put that all together. And on a night full of kind of trashy matches, this one really stood out. And you could tell these two have some good chemistry.
I agree. 3.25 stars for me. No mess ups, great chemistry, a lot of near falls. Like you said before, I was prepared for a pretty, pre-canned ending, and it didn't. I thought that the ending was very, very good and something fresh and different. The power bomb from the top rope to a shooting star was an awesome way to end it. It wasn't like the same, kind of reversing a power bomb into a face smasher. Anytime that you make it seem like, okay, maybe this isn't the spot. Oh shit, it is the spot. I always like those because it kind of keeps you kind of excited to see what's going to happen next. So, every once in a while, I understand people have some signature setup moves, and so that something's about to happen, kind of like the top rope elbow drop from HBK, which usually sets up the sweet chin, or like the double A spine buster returns it to the pedigree. We see these things that are like, okay, here comes the end here.
Yeah, the signature moves.
The Hulk up, the big boot to the leg drop. So that's all well and good for the showmanship, but for matches like that, they don't seem to belong as much. I like it when Kidman goes to the top rope. It's just because it's not his normal setup to go to the top rope. You think, well, is he doing the shooting star? He does. He hits it. So the element of surprise was still there. And both of these guys were, I agree. Well, once again, I feel like they've wrestled each other twice a week for the past 6 weeks. So you better have some good chemistry at this point. And how long is Chavo Guerrero going to be the number 1 contender for the Cruiserweight title?
I don't know. The two of them will probably be wrestling at Uncensored, because anything can happen.
Ric Flair once wore a dress,
Yeah. After this, speaking of Ric Flair, we're going to get an NWO promo. I felt like the voiceover that said "paid for by the NWO" was like mocking voice. It was really different.
It was Kevin Nash, first of all.
Oh, was it Nash? Yeah. Well, that makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
Hogan's going to get on there talking about how he hates his dad. He said, the fans thought he did, say the prayer, vitamins, all that stuff. They did it for him, or did it for the fans. He said, no, he did it all for the money. He doesn't care if he's hated. He talks about how Flair is a rotten piece of crap. He said Flair shows no remorse for his son. He says Flair is the rottenest human being on earth. And I guess now Flair has the chance to win the belt and keep control of WCW. and Hogan's going to ultimately say he's the best in the business. I got to admit it. I know you absolutely love this, and I'll let you talk about it. I thought it was good, but I thought it started to drag towards the end.
I'm not saying it could have been shorter. I agree with that. I think that's my only gripe, was that it just felt like he was interviewing with like Larry King, and it was just going on for far too long. But yeah, he talks about how much of a piece of shit Flair is, because all he cares about is winning the belt and having the power to keep himself on top, while not giving two shits about his son and everything else that's going on, even though David Flair turning on him is Hogan's fault. But now that Hogan, the whole part about this is that it's like the reason why Hogan did this was, having his son turn, making Flair be the person that he knows Flair is, which is not a family man. He's a wrestler. It's his first and last love. And if he can get Flair in that element where Flair's going to come at him as hard as he ever possibly can, because there's nothing that's distracting him, there's nothing that's like muddying the waters as far as what his prime objective, his true motivation in life is, which is the world title, which once again, it felt like a real shoot. If Hogan can beat Flair at that element, then Flair should just leave. There's no reason for Flair to be there anymore. And, Hogan's kind of saying like, hey, I'm a bad guy. I understand that maybe I'm, Hogan sounded like a face in this. He's like, look, let's be real here. Yeah, I'm doing it for the money. I'm an entertainer. That's what I do. But in the end, I'm still doing it for money to to give back to my family and, to, raise, make a better life for them. Flair doesn't even care about that. He's making money for himself. He's getting the prestige for himself. He wants to be the 14-time champion for himself. So he's like, hey, I might be a shitty person, but Flair's the scum of the earth that needs to be removed from this company. So I actually really enjoyed this just because, first of all, it's not your smirky, smarmy, Hollywood Hogan, promo. This felt like
it was definitely more real and gritty to it, for sure.
Yeah, there definitely was a realness to it. And like I said, hindsight 2020, we know a lot more now in 2019. This literally could have been something that Hogan could have said in the 30 for 30 about Hogan.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, about Flair. Is that, Flair's first and last love will always be wrestling. I mean, the dude's been married 4 different times, and he was never there for his kids when during this time. And it's always one of those things that Ric Flair has come back to said one of his biggest regrets in his life was that he really didn't get a chance to see his kids grow up and be more of a father. But in 1999, I mean, this is Flair. This is all he kind of feels like he has.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. I just thought it went slightly long, but it was if it's going to go long, at least it's good. So I'll give it that. We then move to our main event. Buff Bagwell in his first singles match, Kyle, since the Thunder we saw so many months ago, where he, of course, was, could have been paralyzed, all that. Actually, I believe at the time, Haddix was still part of this commentary team or podcast group. That's how long ago that match was.
And that was 6 years ago.
He's going to be wrestling Booker T. We got 10 minutes, which is a solid main event time. It is back and forth for a bit. Buff's going to eventually take control. He is going to spit on the outside at one point and apologize to the cameraman, which I thought was strange. Booker T going to get a scissor kick, flapjack, spinner Rooney. He's going to go for the Harlem sidekick, but Buff Bagwell is going to duck. Mickey J's going to take that Harlem
classic
sidekick.
Fucking Mickey J.
Dude just can't stay out of the action. This is going to lead to Scott Steiner coming out, and he's going to give some stiff, I thought, chair shots to Booker T. Buff is then going to go to the top rope and hit the blockbuster for the 3. I gave it a 2.25 star. Buff definitely needed to win this match, but it gave Buff the win while still protecting Booker T. And I gotta admit, as much as I hate the Bulldog off the top, I think the blockbuster is a fantastic finisher. I just love watching it.
I agree. It's one of my favorite finishers in the wrestling video games.
Oh yeah.
I always like being Buff for that reason. I actually gave this 2 3/4. And my main reason why is because this was Buff's first match back. This easily could have been something that he could have taken easy, but he actually had a good wrestling match. And it didn't look like he lost much of a step. It looked like for the most part he took all the bumps that Booker T is going to give him, and it didn't look like he limited himself in the ring. So I had to give him a little bit more of I feel like anybody else who was probably in the business longer probably would have just, you know what, it's Thunder, it's my first match back. I don't need to, tear the house down or anything like that. I'm just going to go and just do my thing and get out. I felt like Buff had something to prove on TV, and so I appreciated the effort by him. And yes, it was definitely an appropriate way for Buff to go over on someone who already has a number one contendership. As far as I remember, Booker T is still the number one contender for the U.S. title. I'm assuming he's fighting Scott Hall at whatever, that's uncensored. I'm sure Ric Flair will wear a dress during that match as well. But like I said, it didn't look like Buff lost a step. We got to see Scott Steiner on TV, and Mickey J got kicked in the fucking face. Everyone wins. And the other thing I wanted to mention, too, was there were no commercial breaks during this whole match. And I really appreciated that they didn't pause this for any reason. And it might have to do with the fact that they did say that Thunder was in overtime.
I was going to say they ran over at that point. So that's a big part of it for sure. That said, that was Thunder. What'd you think about this show?
Overall, outside of a great effort by Buff and Booker T, and what I would say by Thunder's standards, a classic between Kidman and Chavo, the show had some boring ass matches that I could give two shits about. I remember when we used to have like 8 to 10 matches on a show. Now it just feels like now it truly does feel like a Nitro recap show with a couple of matches peppered in. In this one in particular, it was 6. A lot of promos. Only real storylines playing out in any way, shape, or form was basically just to get 2 matches kind of in the books, which was the tag titles match that was that Lumberjack belt match, and then honorable mention to Saturn and Jericho having that be a dog collar match. It was good to see Hacksaw back, getting the crowd, really, giving him the love that, I know that he deserves for everything he went through. But once again, let's face it, he isn't going to get any huge push, even though he said he's going to do more now than ever before. I seriously doubt that. My final note I had in here is rip Prince Iaukea. So many wrestlers we've watched that seem to look like they would get a half decent push are just getting flushed out. I feel like Wrath is on that list. And who else do we have?
I remember the Wrath matches of the night.
Yeah, like where do those go? Like I love Wrath match of the night. It was a mainstay of Thunder. I feel like we haven't had a Wrath match of the night since like 98.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong there. This Thunder was, I don't know. I don't even know how to feel about this Thunder. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It's one of those that just kind of happened. I feel like not a ton really happened on the show. I mean, we found out about a bunch of matches that are on Uncensored, and I think that's just because Uncensored's 10 days away, and they're like, oh shit, we better like book this card really quick if we're going to sell any pay-per-views. But the show was a lot of replays. It was a lot of promos, both pre-taped and live. And there wasn't a ton of matches. I mean, to your point, you got a okay main event with Buff and Booker T, and you got the Chavo Kidman match, but the rest were just kind of like whatever. We've also had shows with much worse matches, so it was fine, I guess. But I don't know. Like, I will forget about the Thunder tomorrow.
No, and I agree. And I think what's also going to be very interesting is that tomorrow, next episode is going to be a pre-taped show in Winston-Salem, which is going to be the go-home show for Uncensored, which is like, what would you rather have, a go-home show that's live or the Thunder after a pay-per-view that's taped? And it's like, you don't want either. Both of them sound like shit. But right. We're going to get a pre-taped show in Winston-Salem with storyline happening. I feel like next week is either going to be very wrestling heavy, just because they want to fill the time, plus they can control the flow because it's a pre-taped show, or they might go the complete other direction. It's going to be a complete just like Nitro Junior recap festathon. It'll be interesting to see what it's going to be, but I feel bad, man. Like, I know we're going to keep going on with these Thunders. I'm still excited to talk to you about them. But, man, the format is slowly but surely turning into not even the B show. It's kind of bumming me out. I feel like it gets better. I have seen some Thunders, just kind of seeing like what it looked like in like 2000. And there's a couple of noteworthy ones where I feel like they're trying to revive Thunder, but it's gonna – during this time where it feels like they're really putting the brakes on, especially with the fact that WWE is kind of taking control and they're putting all their eggs in the Nitro basket at this point to try and save everything. Thunder really is becoming like a forgotten redheaded stepchild.
Yes, it has, but I'll tell you who's not going to forget it. That's you and I and all of our Thunder buddies. And if you're a new Thunder buddy and you have not yet subscribed, you can go do that on any of your podcast listening devices. Leave us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing. You can always give us a follow on Twitter at Thundercraps, on Facebook, all that. And you can always go to thundercraps.com to catch all of the previous 52 episodes. And then that said, go check out the Go Home show for Uncensored, where anything can happen. That is going to be Thunder 54, March 11th, 1999. We'll watch it, we'll review it, and we will be back here next week. For Kyle Hoagland, I am Josh Kaiser. We will see you next time on the Thundercraps Podcast.
We are blockbusteringly out of time. See ya.